The story begins with a view of the Arctic Ocean, where Julia and Oscar are in the water installing a sonar device and running some experiments, when Oscar suddenly receives an emergency call warning him of an incoming storm and telling them to leave the area as soon as possible. Meanwhile, on the other side, we see a Russian submarine that was detecting a high-intensity noise coming from a distance, when suddenly they notice the sea level slowly rising. The team is left quite stunned by this. At the same time, Julia's scanners also begin showing incorrect readings, and the ice around the camp starts breaking apart. Seeing this, Oscar comes to Julia and tells her they need to leave quickly, as they didn't have much time left. But Julia wanted to finish her experiment before leaving. Looking at the worsening weather, she listens to Oscar and gets on his snowmobile, and the two begin making their way out. But the ice was breaking far faster than either of them had anticipated. Meanwhile, inside the submarine, the team now realizes that the sounds they had been hearing were not from ocean waves, but from some biological entity, meaning there was a living creature present in the sea. Before the team could understand anything further, a massive creature suddenly collides with their submarine, and all the emergency alarms begin going off. The team feels as though the creature has grabbed hold of their submarine and is pulling it downward at great speed. On the other side, we see Julia and Oscar desperately trying to escape and save their lives, as the ice behind them kept breaking apart, when Oscar suddenly spots a massive ice storm rising ahead of them, which was terrifying. Oscar panics greatly, and in that panic, loses his balance, causing the snowmobile to crash into an ice formation and explode. By the time both of them regain consciousness, their camp has already been destroyed by the storm. Meanwhile, under the water, the submarine was continuing to be attacked, and the one carrying out these attacks was none other than the same massive creature. To stop it, the team now begins firing at it. In the light, they can make out some enormous tentacles of the creature. Before the team could learn anything more about those tentacles, the creature attacks the submarine again and destroys it. But just before sinking, the captain gives the order at the last moment to release an emergency signal, so that upon receiving it, their navy would come to rescue them quickly. The very next day, the Russian Marine headquarters receives that signal, through which they learn of their submarine's disappearance. Upon hearing this news, the officers are left shaken, because that submarine was carrying very powerful weapons. So the officers now give orders to a rescue team to retrieve those weapons, and they appoint Victor as the leader of this team, who was in fact the brother of the captain of the missing submarine. So when Victor's mother learns that he is going on a mission to retrieve the weapons, she is initially very worried, but then gives Victor his father's watch as a good luck token, a father who was no longer in this world. Victor takes that watch and leaves home for the mission. There, he meets his father's old friend, Admiral Olshinsky, who was somewhat short-tempered and had also been assigned to this mission by headquarters. Now, as Victor enters the submarine, several crew members come to him with complaints, asking what had happened that was so serious that they were called back before their vacation was even over. Hearing this, Victor says nothing to them for now. After this, we see Julia and Oscar, who were wandering lost in that icy storm and had now almost completely lost their will, because they had no food supplies and no place to stay. On top of that, there was no signal on the satellite phone either. But Julia wanted to get out of there no matter what. So while searching for a signal, she reaches the edge of a deep chasm and is just about to fall in when Oscar arrives and saves her. And when Julia checks the phone, there is now a signal. Seeing this, Julia quickly contacts an oil rig company. But the noise of the storm was so loud that the company member couldn't understand a single word Julia said, and within seconds the call cuts off due to the signal disappearing. Julia and Oscar's hope had now almost completely run out. But still, Oscar fires a flare gun with one last hope of survival, when Julia's eyes fall on the surface of the ice ahead. There, a red light was flickering. But what was it? To find out, both of them run toward this light, and when they get close and look, they realize it is the same emergency signal that the captain of the missing submarine had released. And both of them knew very well that the Russian military would surely come to find this signal. So Julia tells Oscar to stay right there. Meanwhile, after traveling for many hours, Victor's submarine arrives at the location where Victor's brother's submarine had disappeared. They had also received the location of the emergency signal. So Victor tells his team to head to that exact location. But upon arriving there, Victor doesn't find any submarine. Instead, he finds two exhausted geologists in very poor condition. So Victor quickly takes them into his submarine, though there was a hidden purpose behind doing so. In fact, He wanted to find out through Julia and Oscar what had actually happened to his brother's submarine. And when he asks Julia this question, she has no answer for it either. She tells Victor that at first she thought all of this had happened because of an explosion of their sonar device, which triggered a submarine earthquake. But when she checked her equipment, none of the devices had recorded an earthquake that day. Seeing this, Julia became convinced that such a terrible disturbance couldn't have been caused by an earthquake. When Victor checks the company's location after hearing Julia's request, he finds it is not far from there. So he sets off to drop the two of them there. But on the way, the team once again notices the same strange signal on their screen. But what they cannot see is that the creature is now slowly advancing toward them from beneath the ground. Just as these people are getting close to the rig company and are about to contact the person in charge there, the sea begins to stir. Along with powerful waves, several enormous tentacles emerge from beneath the water and destroy the sturdy steel rig company in an instant. Meanwhile, when Victor looks outside through the telescope, he sees the creature's true form, which was in fact a gigantic octopus. After seeing its face, everyone in the team is left stunned. But before they could make sense of anything, the company sinks completely into the sea. So now Victor's team has no choice but to flee. Meanwhile, after destroying the rig, the octopus advances toward their submarine. Seeing this, Admiral Olshansky angrily takes command into his own hands and orders the team to fire 2 torpedoes. But it is of no use, because the octopus was still alive and had now become even more enraged due to the attack. It begins moving rapidly toward their submarine. Seeing this, Admiral Olshansky panics greatly and hands command back to Victor. With command in hand, Victor immediately orders the submarine to be turned in a different direction. In this way, they escape the octopus's attack, but one tentacle strikes their submarine, which damages parts of the submarine, and it begins to sink into the sea. After this, we see that the octopus has attacked them again, and as a result, a fire has now broken out in the torpedo room as well, and around 7 people get trapped inside it, when the octopus strikes once more and begins trying to drag the submarine downward, surrounding them on all sides. Seeing this, Victor tells all team members to remain in silent mode, because sea creatures are often attracted to sound. So Victor orders everyone to stay calm, and also halts the firefighting operations. As a result, carbon monoxide begins building up in the torpedo room. But Victor's plan works. When the Kraken hears no sound, it leaves from there, and as soon as it is gone, the injured people are brought out from the torpedo room and their treatment begins, in which Oscar and Julia also help Victor and earn the crew's trust. Later, Julia tells Victor about the Kraken, saying that according to stories, Krakens sleep for years. But Julia's explosions had perhaps woken it from its deep sleep. So it now wants to take revenge on these people. If they want to stay alive, the sonar must be shut off. She further says that after hunting, octopuses drag their prey into a cave, which meant that Victor's brother's submarine should also be somewhere near Julia's old camp. While these people were still talking, an officer hears a strange signal in a recording made during silent mode, which was coming from Julia's camp's location. Victor now explains the situation to his crew and decides to go to that dangerous place to rescue his brother and the others. While some crew members disagree with him, saying their weapons cannot face that terrifying octopus, and therefore they should leave this place as soon as possible. But Victor, as captain, wanted to fulfill his responsibility. So even with the crew members' objection, he heads out to find the submarine, after which the crew members have no choice but to follow him. Now these people reach a very dangerous chasm. To descend into it, Victor uses a mini submarine and takes 2 officers with him. Down in the chasm, they find hundreds of sunken ships, meaning the story Julia had told about the Kraken was not false. It was true. During this time, they also find Victor's brother's submarine. The front part of it was somewhat intact. So Victor connects the mini submarine to this part, and when he goes inside to look, he sees his brother Alexander and his crew, who were still alive. Seeing his brother alive, Victor is both overjoyed and astonished, because surviving all those days while hiding from the Kraken was no ordinary thing. When he asks Alexander this same question, Alexander tells him that to survive the Kraken, they had used silent mode. That is how they all survived. Now, because space was limited in the mini-submarine, Victor decides to extract the crew members in 2 rounds, and in the first round, seats one team in the submarine and sends them off, while he himself stays behind with his brother. But just as this team reaches the halfway point, we see that the Kraken has woken up again. Meanwhile, Victor and Alexander try to activate those special missiles and after much effort, when the computer turns on, the missile is activated. At that very moment, the Kraken is also about to attack the main submarine, when suddenly a tracker in the mini-submarine accidentally starts up. Attracted by its sound, the Kraken heads toward it. Meanwhile, Admiral Olshansky takes advantage of the opportunity and orders the main submarine to be brought up to the surface, while Victor and Alexander enter the code into the missile and turn it on. But by then the Kraken had already gotten close to them. Now its tentacles begin to grip Victor's submarine. Seeing this, before dying, both brothers speak to each other over the radio and ask for forgiveness for their mistakes. But they still don't give up, and before the Kraken can destroy the submarine, they press a switch together and carry out a powerful blast. As a result, the Kraken begins to burn in flames, and a beam of light is seen slicing through the Arctic ice and going up into the sky. Now the submarine begins sinking completely, and water starts filling inside it. Seeing this, both brothers run toward the mini-submarine, but a powerful wave separates them. Victor grabs Alexander's hand trying to save him, and somehow manages to bring him inside the mini-submarine. But the problem was that the mini-submarine was now unable to detach from the sinking ship, while the missile was about to blast within seconds. In this difficult situation, Victor suddenly remembers the emergency lever. He pulls it with all his strength, after which the mini-submarine escapes just before the blast. Meanwhile, outside the water, Admiral Olshansky along with the entire crew was waiting for the two of them. But after a very long time, when there seems to be no hope of Victor and his brother arriving, the people begin to leave in disappointment. But just then, the mini-submarine bursts through the water with Victor and Alexander inside. Upon seeing the two of them, the entire crew erupts in joy and everyone breathes a sigh of relief. After which Victor hands his father's watch to Alexander. But he refuses to take it and tells Victor that he is the true owner of this watch, so he should keep it with himself. Sometime later, the entire crew arrives in Russia, and the two brothers reunite with their families. And in this way, the dangerous and seemingly impossible mission finally becomes successful, and the movie ends here.